.1 Smooth Breakfast here with Ayo Ese.
And Valentine Ohu.
And it's time for Freshly Pressed 981. This is when we analyze the national news headlines for today. Joining us to analyze the news headlines, news stories today, we have Cheta. Morning, Cheta.
Good morning.
Cheta is at Checkstar on Twitter. Good Oyetunde on Twitter.
Good morning.
All right.
You not say good to see.
And if you'd like to get involved in the conversation this morning,
Yes, please send us messages through WhatsApp 0809 444 0981. That is 0809 444 0981. On Twitter, we're at Smooth981FM. The hashtag is Freshly Pressed 981. And we're streaming live on YouTube. You can also leave a message there. And please subscribe.
thank you. That's our first headline here this morning. Cheta, I'll start with you. Punch newspaper has this headline: Change government through elections, not revolution. This advice or suggestion is on media and publicity, Garba Shehu. He stated, following calls circulating on social and digital media, an organization that calls itself the Global Coalition for Security and Democracy in Nigeria plans a revolution march today, tomorrow, that's today, Monday, 5th August, with the aim of bringing regime change in Nigeria without recourse to nationwide vote. Cheta, please take us through the story.
Um, I've read through the manifesto of the revolution now people represented or led by, or however we want to put it. Sowore, Sowore, the former SUG president of University of Lagos, and Sahara Reporters guerrilla journalism websites. And there are quite a number of complaints, but I didn't get the sense, and it wasn't explicitly stated, that they want to overthrow the government. It's a bit rich, the statements coming from Garba Shehu, representing a man who wants to overthrow a government in this country's history. But there's something rather rich in the whole thing. He says the president of Nigeria and his administration respect and uphold the right of every Nigerian to peaceful protests and civil campaign, but the Islamic movement of Nigeria have been doing peaceful protests for 4 years now, and they've been met with violence at every junction. And you have a situation where they bring back our girls coalition as another example. We're going to gather at the Unity Fountain in Abuja every evening by 5 p.m. and they were met with press revolution. We have the Industrial Revolution in England, the Whiskey Revolution in Pennsylvania, the major ones.
Okay.
What has Sowore and his group complained about? Rising violence. Last week, at least 86 people were killed in violent incidents across the country.
All right.
Rising kidnappings. 14 people were kidnapped, at least, attacking them. As if the right to dissent, the right to complain, is fundamental, not a democracy.
All right, thank you. I'd like to link this to the next story, and I'd like, in terms of answering the question as to should they not have, gone through the route of vote and elections, which he pointed out happened just a few months back. And that's the story where Presidency also accused Wole Soyinka of blackmail. This is from the Premium Times, because the story is linked. And one thing that Garba Shehu has maintained in both stories, or is maintaining in both stories, is that we're not saying that you shouldn't protest or challenge a bad government, but do it the constitutional way, the constitutionally approved way, and that is through elections.
The man was on the ballots a few months ago. For the records, I told him, because he actually approached me to join his campaign, and I told him he was wasting his time. That's besides the point. The point is he actually went through the means. Again, Garba Shehu is being rich in this whole thing. Why do I say so? You are representing a man who contested elections in 2003, 2007, 2011, and 2015. He lost in the first three, and each time he protested. Again, looking at Sowore's manifesto, or whatever language you want to use for this revolution now thing, at nowhere did he did not complain about okay, yes, there was the usual, oh, the election was rigged and all of that.
Yeah.
But we are avoiding issues here. We are the main issue here is people's right to protest. And then a second issue, which is also is the Gestapo style tactics that the secret police used to pick him up. Was there a court order? Not to my knowledge. Was there
A search warrant?
was there a search warrant or anything? No. There were two people last week, himself and a Kwankwaso supporter in Kaduna, Dadiyata, that were picked up in that same style. Now, the main thing here, actually, we're in a philosophical debate. It's actually a classical philosophical debate here.
All right.
The debates of whether free will versus determinism. Now, free will is the ability to choose between different courses of action unimpeded. Determinism, on the other hand, is the belief that all events are already predetermined. So you have to take action to preempt. These guys, by the Sowore's revolution now protest, the Waka, because it was, from all I understand, it was supposed to be people trekking long distances. The Waka was scheduled for today. You determined that it was going to become violent, so you have gone to pick him up. Now, here's the thing. In classical philosophy, determinism is not compatible with democracy. Simple and short. So what the government is telling us from a philosophical viewpoint is they don't even believe in the people's right to free will.
All right.
That is what they're telling us.
Thank you very much. And another thing they've also reacted to is Wole Soyinka's statement. So Wole Soyinka came out, Professor Wole Soyinka came out to condemn the actions of the presidency,
It is
saying
completely condemnable.
but they've accused him of being of blackmail, saying that he's been a hypocrite.
Again, classic these governments tactic. The moment you criticize these governments, they have a list of names that they reel out. I mean, I have been called ethnic bigot, I've been called Biafran, I've been called whatever, the hatred of Buhari by support of these governments, all because of criticism.
All right.
Criticism and dissent, again, bedrock of democracy. You cannot have a democracy without criticism and dissent.
Thank you very much.
Bengals here sends in the message. Says a bunch of noisemakers and attention-seeking accidental activists had a good opportunity of carrying out their so-called revolution during the last general elections, but rather than come together to form one formidable force strong enough to wrestle power legitimately, they were all greedy for power. They all wanted to become president, hence they lost woefully. I trust security operatives to deal decisively with any group of persons who want to cause unrest in the land revolution call and revolution, he says. Marcel says, let's be careful of the type of rhetoric we put out there. There's a clear difference between protesting and revolution. Now, the protest, he says, is both civil and constitutional when done in a non-violent way. The dictionary definition of the revolution is to forcibly change a legitimate government of a country. Sowore called for a revolution. Having failed at the polls, we must understand that there are consequences for such actions.
All right.
Unfortunately, very bad education on display in these comments.
All right. Well, Cheta, he's entitled to his
No,
comment as you are.
I've made my comments.
All right. Thank you. All right. Adenike, let me come to you for the next one. Lagos to prosecute owner of truck of dancing women. New Telegraph has this headline, as with a number of dailies this morning. So the government of Lagos State yesterday vowed to bring the full weight of the state signage law to bear on the owners of the advert truck that had semi-nude or semi-naked women dancing on the truck at the Lekki toll gate. Now, a number of people must have been on social media. You must have seen the pictures that went viral on
Music video.
Yes, we didn't even know it was a music video at the
Well,
time.
No. The clip that
It
was
is actually for a music video.
I'm not in the video. I confirmed the identity of the person. There wasn't shades during the night. Yeah, that's what we see.
Okay, so Adenike, tell us about this. A number of people were appalled. Some people were like, it's normal. Why we so? Why
the
we
commentary.
And then the
Yes.
account from the mail.
Yes.
So you see how
It's
Gender
Valentine is
society.
trying to
I'm
get somewhere,
looking forward
and I will
to-
for advertisement agency Mobolaji Sanusi why it's necessary for me to say this is I do not want it's kind of difficult for me to throw out my personal opinion.
Yes.
I did state that downstairs, but I'll stick with the
Oh, I
statement.
missed that conversation, and I'd love to be there.
The statement read in part that the attention of the Lagos State Signage and Advertisement Agency has been drawn to a viral video on social media a display of semi-nude women in an outdoor mobile advertising truck around the Lekki Ikoyi toll gate. While the agency is working on ascertaining the status of the truck with the plate number, blah, blah, we wish to state without equivocation.
You should go to the beach or pool park to see women in bikini. Nobody complains. Human government's resolving stamp duty. If you recall, VAT charges on transactions in the capital market was suspended in 2014 by then Minister of Finance Konjo-Iweala. Now they're saying that stamp duties collection and the extension of VAT exemption on capital markets are being looked into. Your thoughts on this?
Okay, yeah, and I remember that one of the things that a lot of people applauded when this happened was it was some form of ease for operators in this sector, and now that the time has elapsed, people are waiting anxiously, and it was a good thing that the vice president, speaking at the Association of Issuing Houses of Nigeria, which was held in Lagos, he was represented by the Acting Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission, Ms. Mary Utok, said these and other issues were being announced very soon. Other aspects of CAMIC's request that require government intervention, and will be collaborating with many of you in the capital market community to successfully address them. My office is actually represented on that committee, and I'll therefore be receiving periodic reports on suggestions to further strengthen our support of your efforts and the market as a whole. Now, this is very important. It says we all desire a capital market that would broaden access to economic prosperity by enabling the emergence of financially responsible citizens, accelerating wealth creation and wealth distribution, providing capital to small and medium-scale entrepreneurs, and utilizing housing finance. And I feel like now that he's mentioned, there's a lot of people are waiting anxiously, because with the stamp duty or any other taxes that you pay, especially if it's, for instance, 0.01, you think that it's small until you get involved, and then you realize that the accumulation of everything is a whole lot. So I'm not sure what would happen in this space where it's not operational. If they're going to be suspension, if when it comes to effect, they'll go back in time to say, oh, from July 2019 when it ended, any transactions that occurred in that space would also have to go back in time, so you don't have to pay the duties or the levies, as the case may be. And because of that vagueness, some people are just skeptical again. That's, you didn't say anything. You didn't say that when this thing comes back into full force, so it's operational, transactions that happened in that space. So because that isn't said, it's leaving the vice president to speak up about this. So fingers crossed.
Thank you.
All right, let's take a few comments on YouTube. So YouTube has Emeka Onelum saying, do we expect the government to hear the word revolution and expect them to sit down and do nothing? In as much as the intention is good, there's a risk of it getting out of hand and beyond Sowore's control.
This one in here from Henry. Henry says, good morning. The one mistake the convener of today's planned protest made was his wrong choice of the word revolution. As a journalist, he would have avoided that controversial word and still made this point clear. Well, he succeeded in registering his name in the history books.
What if I say he would have been arrested regardless?
Exactly.
Tara from Yaba says, it's not every client's request that a practitioner will do. Now the company is in a mess because of what? Adenike should air her opinion on the great. Interesting. Welcome, Cheta. This one says from Analyst Judge. She says, now to enjoy analysis again. Please, the lady moderator.
So I stop cutting Cheta's analysis so that they can listen to every. Please
So
understand.
can I now talk about
No,
Cheta?
you
So
can't.
that when
because-
NBC will
Okay,
now
so
find him,
let
the time in his
do you
office.
understand? So let me now come to Cheta since his popular request. Okay, so from the Punch newspaper, Cheta, water bill to bring back Ruga. That's what the South and Middle Belt leaders and stakeholders are saying. They said there are strong indications, apparently, that the federal government may soon reintroduce the controversial bill that was rejected by the 8th Senate. Now the 9th Senate, I'm using your thoughts on this.
So last dispensation, there was a bill that was introduced by Senator Sowore to give control of waterways to the federal government. Right now, waterways fall under the auspices of the Land Use Act, which essentially vests control in the states. So he wanted waterways to go direct to the federal government, and that bill failed on the floor of the Senate. And in the voting patterns showed a clear split between the South and the North, with the Middle Belt, which normally is historically used to be a part of the North joining with the South. These things show a clear breakdown of trusts between the regions, and it's it's not surprising because when you consider the fact that, so as an example, there was an attempt by former head of state Abdul Salami Abubakar to convene a peace dialogue, yeah, last week, and the moment leaders from the south and the middle belt heard that Miyetti Allah would be there, they pulled out promptly. If you plot the especially attacks that were pinned to herdsmen between 2014 and first half of 2017, if you had plotted them against a map, you would have seen that they largely followed waterways. That's the places that didn't. What all of this implies to people is that they are looking for places to graze their cattle and that they're following waterways. So an attempt to give the federal government, a federal government that is not trusted to be impartial in this conflict, an attempt to give that federal government control of waterways away from the states is almost certain to be interpreted as an attempt to favor the pastoralists. And that is what we are seeing here. So the key thing here is that trust has broken down. So when trust has broken down, the first thing you do is you try to appear impartial. You try. So what is good? So when you have a situation where Al Hassan Saleh comes on Channels TV, threatens the whole country, nothing happens. Then Sowore comes and says, "Oh, revolution now." He's picked up. Ralph Wazirike says, "Defend yourselves." He's picked up. People look at these things and say, "Oh, one person gets soft handling and other people get hard handling." And they make decisions based on that perception. Perception greater than reality at any given point in time. So all of this mistrust, all of this bad reaction is the fault of these governments. Let's not sugarcoat it. And until they learn how to treat people with equity, equality doesn't exist in human interactions. Let's not kid ourselves. But at least give equity. Let people believe that we will have similar treatment under the same roof. And then people will begin to, otherwise, the alternative is anarchy. And that is where we are headed.
Thank you very much, Cheta. Quick look at the next story from Daily Times. Adenike, the Lagos State government is moving to curb vandalism of pipelines and a lot of insecurity issues. They said they've done aerial surveillance on the areas affected, and they're going to start demolishing structures that are on the right of maybe the pipeline routes. Your thoughts on this, please?
Okay, so quick one. As reported by the Daily Times, the story is that the governor over the weekend did have a closed-door meeting with commanders of all security formations in the state to review the strategy being adopted to strengthen security across the state. And after the meeting, the governor did state that the aim is to curb crime around waterways and valuable government assets in the state. And this is because they've now gotten news, and like you mentioned, aerial surveillance. Now, the aerial surveillance, according to the governor, is because a lot of properties have been found to be harboring jerry cans and they suspect bunkering. And because of that, they think that one of the ways to handle it is to remove such properties from such areas. I'm sure that they're going to do it the right way. They're not just going to displace people from their homes, especially if a property owner doesn't know something is going on, I don't know, for whatever reasons. Now, he did also state that they're getting, this is because there have been possible threats around waterways and government assets in the states. And another priority of theirs is around pipeline vandalism, which unfortunately has been brought down again. And almost every quarter, we hear of one pipeline vandalism here and there in certain areas of the state. So it's well, I don't want to say it's a welcome development. I think it's a little too late, but let them do what it is they have to do. And like we already know, quite a number of homes will be displaced, or persons will lose their homes if the state should run as it ought to. So, yeah.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. C from VI has this to say: the government should stop its diversionary tactic. The key issue is its clear inability to address the rising levels of poverty, insecurity, and hopelessness prevalent in the Nigerian society.
And then, okay, Sunday sent us a video. Thank you very much, Sunday. And this message from Dr. I says, the rise of sycophants and hypocrites in Nigeria is alarming. Clearly, we get justification for impunity and corruption. Dissent must be crushed. Apparently, democracy is a government of yes, sirs. This is frightening. Solomon from Akoka says, on Sowore's arrest, if revolution could be any of those definitions, like Cheta said, was it wrong for the DSS to pick him up and ask him to clarify? So we should not be economical with the truth. Sowore said he does not care what any judge would say, that he was ready to bungle that man out of Aso Rock, and the DSS was meant to be looking.
All right, thank you, Solomon, for Makoka and every other person who sent in messages. Unfortunately, this is where we have to close the curtain on Freshly Pressed 91 for this morning. And Adenike Oyetunde on Twitter. If you'd like to continue the conversation with us offline, please feel very free to do so. You can use the hashtag Freshly Pressed 91 at Smooth 91 FM.
Do you know what story you guys are doing?
No, it would be probably with the revolution story. Yeah, revolution
Maybe
story
we
had the
should
most.
Surprised you'll be that truck.
I think I was
Revolution
just
had
going
the
to
most amount of comments.
I feel you guys should do
Revolution
the job.
has-
Unfortunately, because Lagos State people are not here, because it has to be balanced. Piece of crap.
I was trying to.
If you want
restrain